I've been at this for 15 seconds and you already want to be on my lap. Yeah, you're such a silly. You're silly. Hello, this is Sarah's Soiled Plant and welcome back to my channel. I've got a few chores I have to get done and some soil. I'm gonna pot some of these up. These are some seedlings that are way overdue for being put in a pot. They are busting through the lids I gave them. So I'm gonna be putting them in soil and putting them away. So I'll be putting all of these into a pot and possibly in the future selling or keeping or gifting some of these. But I want to get them into pots. I want to get them into soil so that they're not just in moss anymore. I have all of my soil next to me here, so it's a little bit easier to grab. I just made this. I make all my soil myself. Ingredients and everything I use will be down in the description. It'd be helpful if I cleared off the table first. That would be a good thing to do. Everything's pretty much going in the same size, so I've got a stack of 4-inch plastic pots that I just got off Amazon. Very standard, very cheap. Most of the time I put things in cover pots anyway, so what it ultimately looks like isn't that big of a deal to me. But how is everyone's summer going? I decided to kind of take the summer off, kind of unofficially. I didn't know how long I would be away when I decided to be away. It's been a little bit chaotic in my world. Don't worry, I'm completely fine. Things are on the up and up. But I just had a few things kind of happen to me all at once. I had a lot of car problems, recurring car problems where like I would try to fix it, I would pay somebody to fix it and then it wouldn't be fixed and something else would break. And I actually just got my car back last week from another repair. So my car is currently kind of draining me of resources. At one point it actually stopped me from visiting my family, which I was not happy about at all because I had a window issue and I didn't want to go on a long car ride with a window issue. You know, it's a long cascade of things with that car. I do still like the car as a car, but it's just like, and I don't want to buy a new one, especially right now. Everything is so expensive right now. I tried to actually get quotes for redoing my patio, you know, just in concrete, rip out the old, put in the new, and it was $20,000 to redo my patio. How do I put this? They were not necessarily trying to take advantage of me, but I think they didn't want to do the work. So they quoted really high, hoping that I wouldn't take it, but if I did take it, it would be like worth their while to fit me in. Especially, I guess, around Michigan, you kind of have to schedule things like by the end of winter in order to get things done. So if you want to be on the schedule, you have to schedule early. And by the time I was looking in June, that was too late and everybody was booked up. So I feel like they also were charging based on the fact that probably no one else was going to do the work. So I will try again next season and see if I can get a cheaper price. My patio definitely needs redoing and it'll go a long way to making my house a little more usable and be able to use my outdoor spaces, because right now I really don't use my outdoor space at all. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is my philodendron white princess. I think this is the white princess, or it's a white knight. So you can tell I'm out of practice because I can't remember if it's a white princess or white knight. I have both, and just this one is one that's in moss, so I am going to transpot it. It's got a ton of nice healthy roots, so I want to give it the best shot possible and give it some nice soil. I'll probably be leaving most of this moss in there and just kind of covering it with soil and hoping the soil kind of fills in the voids, but I still want to take as much of this out as possible, otherwise it's going to be soil wrapped around a moss ball. So other things that have been going on with me, work is not going well. I feel kind of safe saying that because no one at work really knows I have a YouTube channel. So I feel safe saying that it's not going the best right now and I am looking for other employment at the moment. And a new job would be awesome and exciting and, you know, offer all the benefits a new job can, with hopefully some options to work from home, whereas currently I don't have those options. Maybe a pay raise, maybe like just a work environment that I think that fits me better. I do think working at a place you don't like is kind of a underrated reason for you know, any sort of mental health issues or stress or just general like orneriness. I find that my job has definitely contributed to me having a worse attitude than I probably should, especially in the last couple weeks with all the other stressful things going on. So it's like, you know, it all just kind of compounds. So I'm in Southeast Michigan, which is kind of where Detroit is, and I'm an engineer. So it's kind of interesting to think that like in this area in particular, engineers are in super high demand, but they're also a dime a dozen. It's kind of a weird thing there. So I'm kind of threading that needle, trying to find somewhere that I would like to work that would give me the things that I'm hoping to get, and then also like be a good environment. So I'm trying to thread all that, and I'm doing lots of applications right now, did some good resume work. So I'm just like, I'm very eager to get out of the current employment situation. So I am looking to leave. I won't kind of get into the details as to why, but you know, I've been there for over 2.5 years. So if you're not thinking it's your forever job, it's probably about time you should start looking for a new job anyway. So that's what I am doing. And then I'm going to backfill with my soil mixture and kind of tamp it in there. Do my little shake here. Little trademark shake to get everything in there. I am sure I'm not the only person doing that. I don't know, there's some rule on the internet that if you've thought of it, it exists already, so I am sure that I am not the first person to think of that, but it definitely works and I like it. I'm gonna keep doing it. You can do it too if you want. Nice, so that does it for that one. Hopefully that one will be the longest of all of these, because most of these are a little bit smaller and less moss and less plant, I should say. So I've written on all of these. So this is a philodendron verrucosum. Check that out. It is doing so well. These are a little extra saturated because I just watered yesterday. But when I was walking through, I'm like, I should definitely plant those up. I look at them every time I water and I'm like, those need to be planted up. And then I just wait and procrastinate. And then magically, finally, I managed to sit down and film a video too, because I do miss having kind of the structure and the interaction of posting a video every week, and I've missed it. You know, I've enjoyed the pseudo freedom that comes with not having that responsibility for the summer, and that was great, especially with all my other stuff going on. That I found it to be, you know, needed, but I did miss it very much. See, here's me saying that this is going to be so much easier, and it feels almost just as bad, if not worse, than the other one. That just goes to show how little I know. These are all going to be a huge pain in the butt. For the record, breaking all of these up after watering it, like right after watering it, is the absolute worst time to do this. So I do not recommend anyone else do this. Soiled plant technique, doing wonders right now. I'm trying to stretch the plant out because it was definitely crowded in that cup. Probably before I put all the plant in there, I will write on it what it is. So that is my verrucosum. Let's see which one is next. This is my Alocasia mandalay. My original mandalay ended up dying. It got spider mites really bad, and I just did not feel it was worth fighting it. So I kept the corms and I got rid of the mother plant. I actually had my Monstera Adansonii. This one right here, it was doing terrible. It kept getting spider mites, so I ended up cutting all of the leaves off, treating the stems like multiple times, and then cutting it into nodes and putting it, you know, in moss, and I ended up getting a whole plant out of it. So cut up the nodes, take the leaves off, take corms out, all that kind of stuff. It's a good way to keep your plant without keeping the plant that is infected. These are literally saturated. They're like dripping wet. This one's much better. Thank you, Alocasia, for having short stubby roots instead of long gangly roots like philodendrons, because this is so much easier to take this off with you, even though it is wet. We've got 3 little mandalays that grew from corm, and I am going to put Let's see, do I want to put all of them in the same pot? Yeah. Awesome. This is so much easier. I love it. Perfect. All right, another one done. Dragon scale. Check out the roots on that. So many roots. It looks almost like grass. There's so much root. I love it. So one of the major reasons that I didn't come back sooner, early on it was just like, oh, I want to take a break. I want to enjoy my summer, yada, yada. But the reason I stayed away as long as I did is because I got sick. So I'll tell you the whole situation. I'm an open book to a degree, but none of this stuff is like things that I would not feel comfortable sharing. So I'll just share what happened to me. So I was having some issues for a few weeks, and I was having pain, and I was going to the doctor, and I had infections. So I would go to the doctor and get antibiotics. Nothing was working, but I wasn't in a lot of pain. It was just kind of, cursory pain and the kind of things that I've had in the past. So I was like, oh, it's nothing. I won't think anything of it. I can't tell which ones have roots and which ones belong to other plants. There we go. We've got a teeny tiny little alocasia right there that I didn't even realize was a thing until I started pulling this apart. I didn't even see that one, but we're gonna spread them apart ever so gingerly. Look at the tiny thing with the little tiny roots. Sorry, I got distracted by plants. Of course, that's my life. I'm distracted by plants and cats just constantly. So one day I was having all this cursory pain, and then I went to work. It was, I think it was a Thursday when I went to work, and I'm like, oh, I feels a little worse than normal. Like, maybe I should go see somebody. And then I went home, yada, yada. I didn't end up going to the doctor. And then Friday morning, I woke up with the worst headache I've ever experienced in my life. I'm not somebody who gets frequent headaches or migraines, so it was definitely something that was not normal. I couldn't move really. I had to call work and let them know, like, hey, I'm going to be about an hour late. I have either a migraine or something, and I'm working on dealing with it. I took some ibuprofen or Excedrin, I can't remember, some sort of painkiller. And while it was still really bad, I still went into work, mainly because of all these work issues I've been having. I didn't want it to seem like I was, being negligent in my duties. And that's a really unhealthy way to look at it, which is one of the reasons why I'm looking for a new job. I was not feeling great all day at work. I had several meetings and a meeting with my manager and all this stuff, so I felt like, no, I have to go into work. I can't just skip today. I can't call in sick today. I just felt some loyalty to the idea of like needing to go to work. And progressively throughout the day, I kept getting intense pain in like all of my body. So it was arms, legs, like walking was difficult. I had back pain, I had shoulder pain, I had headaches. And so I was like, I need to go to the urgent care right after work. And I still stayed, even though I was in a good amount of pain to the point where walking was difficult. I still did not leave work until like 4:30 on that Friday just to go to the doctor. So I left work at 4:30. I went straight to an urgent care from work. The doctor there pretty quickly diagnosed me with a kidney infection. Said it's pretty severe, so she gave me an antibiotic in a shot while I was in the office, gave me prescription, told me to keep a close eye on it, and I also had a 101 fever at that point. And she told me that if by tomorrow, that Saturday, if my fever didn't go away, then I should go to the ER. The whole thing was so bad because, like, I went to lunch with a friend of mine on that Friday when I was at work because she lives very close to where I work. And so we got lunch because we've been meaning to do it forever, and I couldn't eat anything. I was in a lot of pain. Like, she could tell that something was off the whole time, and I said like, yeah, something's wrong. I'm probably gonna go to the doctor after work. And then after the lunch was over, I drove back to work, but then I just sat in my car in the July heat. I just sat in the car with the AC off and the windows up and basically turned my car into a sauna. And that was like the only thing that would relieve all of the pain I was feeling. Like, the fact that I was at work during all of this is just bonkers to me. Like, it was so bad. I had my meeting like right after lunch too, so I was sitting in this like boiling hot car until like 12:45 so that I could like not be in pain for this meeting. And it was just like so terrible. So that Friday I go home. I'm still in a lot of pain. You know, I call all the necessary people. I call my parents, I call the boyfriend, I tell them what's going on. And basically I just have to hunker down and see if my pain alleviates, if my fever goes away, all these symptoms I'm having. So it's a lot of fun, is kind of what I'm saying. You know, the whole next day, I basically was horizontal. I could barely move. I had no appetite. I was trying to force feed myself, but I could barely like stomach the idea of food just because of the amount of pain I was in. I found, at least for me, when I am feeling sick, a lot of times I lose my appetite, which is terrible. Even if it's something that's not directly related to appetite, like I'll still lose my appetite, which just makes things worse because then you're also weak and can't fight whatever you're trying to fight. It's like, it's terrible. But I did try and eat things, but my fever broke and I was all excited about it. I started to feel better. I was able to move around the house a little bit by Saturday evening. I called everybody and I'm like, I avoided going to the hospital, yay. And they're all like, yay. Hopefully you're on the mend. And then the next morning, I wasn't feeling great. I kind of regressed a little bit, but it wasn't bad. And then around like 10 a.m., I think I'd been awake for like 3 hours at that point. At about 10 a.m., I started feeling my kidney pain coming back. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel like I'm getting sick again. So I took my temperature and my fever came back. And it wasn't like super low grade either. I would think it was like 100.5. And I had habitually been taking my temperature like every 5 seconds pretty much. Just keeping an eye on everything and making sure that I was, you know, getting progressively better. At the worst point of my infection, I had 103.5 fever. So it was pretty bad, but it was short-lived, and I got some aspirin for reducing the fever, all that kind of stuff. I was taking that religiously, and that helped a lot too. These are all root systems that are fairly sizable, so I'm going to put them all in their own separate pots just to give them enough room to grow, because they look super healthy. This one's got a new leaf coming. It's starting to unfurl. Cute. I've got to make sure I don't damage that as I'm pouring all this in. Excellent. So much progress. I'm going to feel so much better when all of these are done. Okay, this is a philodendron splendid that looks like some grass got mixed in, or something that resembles grass, because this is crazy. Like, what is going on here? They're like living in symbiosis, but I don't want whatever the grassy stuff is, so I'm going to be pulling those out. Yeah, I have no idea what that is, but it is going to be garbage now. So my fever came back on that Sunday morning. I was checking religiously, and in the morning I think I had like a 99.0, and I was like, oh, maybe that's a fluke. Maybe I just was like, because I just woke up, I might have been extra warm, you know, all those things you tell yourself to make sure, you know, that you're okay. I was starting to feel bad. My kidney pain started coming back, and so I was like, let me take my temperature again. And lo and behold, my fever had come back in full swing. Very upset. I called the doctor and said, this is what's going on. Unfortunately, it wasn't the same doctor I'd been talking to the whole time. You know, she worked on Saturday, but she didn't work on Sunday. It was a different doctor in the urgent care on that Sunday. And so I told her what was going on. She looked at my file, all that kind of stuff, and then she was like, yeah, you need to go to the hospital. So, unfortunately, that Sunday, I was admitted to the ER. Like, that might seem like a little unnecessary to some. You know, your kidney is pretty vital to your entire body working. So if something goes wrong, you know, it kind of has a cascading effect on the rest of your body, unfortunately. And you can go on dialysis if it gets too bad. Also, if the kidney infection gets too bad, you can damage your kidneys in other ways. And if you have damaged kidneys, you're far more likely to have ongoing issues in the future. Those are things I wanted to avoid. So when they said to go to the hospital, I complied and went to the hospital. So I called the boyfriend, he came to come pick me up, and we went to the hospital. And I mean, they did a bunch of tests. I did CAT scans, you know, all these tests and blood work constantly. And luckily there was no permanent damage to my kidneys. I was on the mend pretty quickly. The first, I would say, oh gosh, the first 12 hours were pretty bad. And the ER was very much understaffed. Like, I don't bemoan the nurses and nursing staff at all. There are other people with far worse conditions than what I had. I was fairly stable at that point now that I had fluids and the antibiotic in my system, but they were not doing well with the painkillers aspect of it, and my pain was pretty bad. Like, you know, on the hospital scale, like, you'll go and they tell you what everything means. I was pretty much at a 7 constantly when I was at home. These are silver dragon. Super adorable. Look at the little baby silver dragon. Little bluey gray. Oh, I love silver dragons so much. I wish they grew as fast as my dragon scale, because I have a million dragon scale, but I feel like I have like no silver dragon, and they don't reproduce fast enough for me. It was frequently throughout the night in the ER that I would run out of painkillers and be just laying there in excruciating pain, and there was nobody there to help. It was not a pleasant experience, and I don't think that the nurses are to be blamed necessarily. They're overwhelmed. It's just like, it's an unfortunate situation. When someone finally came in my room, I think it was like, you know, 3 or 4 in the morning, and it was just like one of the hospital staff like walking around being like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, I haven't had any help, like, help me. It was so sad. I was being very dramatic, but you know, when you're in pain and in a place by yourself and like can't really do anything for yourself, it's a very humbling experience. So I was very sad. And then she got the nurse, was able to get me my pain medication and everything, and then I was finally able to sleep. So I didn't sleep very much at all that first night in the hospital because I was still in the ER at that point. It was just a big mess. But generally speaking, I was stable when I was in the hospital, but they needed me to stay in the hospital for 3 days to make sure that I was okay. They did move me to different rooms, things like that, talking to doctors, and they were able to release me on Wednesday. So after that, I was pretty weak physically. My appetite came back probably the last day I was in the hospital. I started being able to eat again, at least in any real ratio. Like, I was eating stuff, but I wasn't like eating enough, and it probably wasn't, you know, the best stuff in the world, but I was really super craving like fruit and vegetables especially, which is good. Like, those are good for you. So I was very much, you know, trying to get my hands on fruit and vegetables for the most part, which is strangely difficult in a hospital. I had the hospital food and all that kind of stuff, but there was not a ton of like fresh vegetables especially, and if they did, they were disgusting. But like I said, I was eating and everything was fine. I get home, I end up going back to work the following Monday, so I was out of work for a whole week, you know, mostly because I was in the hospital, all that kind of stuff. but I was very weak and I wasn't able to do a lot of activity because I was still in recovery. I was just recovering at home. You know, I wasn't in pain anymore, but it's just, you know, any sort of shock to the system like that, you kind of have to have time to heal. So I was in my recovery period, like everything's fine. But that Saturday, after feeling gross, I went to a gathering to hang out with people because, you know, I'm dumb. And then following that, I immediately got COVID. So this is actually my second time getting COVID. I got it at the very beginning of the year, right after Christmas. Did not get it or spread it to my family, thank God. But I did get it and was, you know, quarantining, all that good stuff. And it affected me pretty good. Like, it wasn't a super mild case where I wasn't unaffected, but I definitely wasn't feeling good for, you know, 2 days or so until I was able to start moving around again. This time, because it was right after the infection, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like I was going through a kidney infection again. So as soon as I tested positive for COVID using an at-home test, I notified work. They told me the policy about COVID, which I think is 5 days from testing positive. And then I called my primary care doctor and said, hey, all my kidney stuff, hey, by the way, I had all this kidney stuff that just happened to me. I hadn't had a chance to call you about it yet. And now I've got COVID and all my symptoms are coming back and everything hurts and yada yada. So I asked if I could get access to the COVID pill, which luckily I was able to. The COVID pill is basically a 3-sequence pill. There's like 2 of one pill and the third other pill, and you take them. I'm not sure if there's multiple, but the one I took was Paxlovid, which was super helpful. It basically took away a lot of my symptoms, but I still had the weakness, and all of my taste went away. Now, the taste going away can actually be a side effect from the Paxlovid, but, you know, I was too worried. You know, I was way more concerned about making sure that I wasn't getting reinfected by the kidney infection since I was still fighting that and taking medicine for it. And I wanted to make sure my COVID was as symptom-free as humanly possible so my body could fight off the infection. And it ended up working, but I did lose a lot of flavor. The way I described it to people is like I was licking the movie Mad Max. Everything kind of tasted like dust and grease and sweat, like all at the same time, and like very metallic. So it was not pleasant, and everything I ate tasted like that, except for like a small handful of food items, which was like popcorn, Cool Ranch Doritos, and like apples. And like that was the only things that I could eat, and like fruit. So raspberries, strawberries, those were pretty much all I was eating for like 5 days was Doritos, popcorn, and fruit, which, you know, it sustained me, but that was hilarious that no matter what else I ate, it would make me feel nauseous. But those are the things I could eat, and boy did I eat. Went through like 2 gigantic family-sized bags of Doritos. I went through like 7 microwave popcorn bags, all that stuff. Just to do like the quick overarching summary is just like, generally speaking, I was weak and sad and sick for most of the month of July. And even after all of that was done, like the COVID was gone, the infection was gone, and all of that was better, I got a bunch of tests done. They're like, you're good, you don't have anemia, you don't have all this other stuff that you could have gotten from, you know, as a side effect of all of this. But I had lost about 10% of my body weight in those 2 to 3 weeks. When I went to the doctor 10 days after getting COVID, which is like the safety buffer you have, they scheduled an appointment for me as a follow-up for both the kidney infection and COVID 10 days after I got COVID. And at that point, I was 10% of my body weight down than I normally was. So I can only imagine how low I was during the peak of all of this. It was not good. So when that happened to me, basically I was showing symptoms of anemia without actually having anemia. I couldn't hold my hands steady. I'm still not great at it. Like, I'm getting better. And the doctor just basically told me, you got to gain all the weight back. You're medically fine. Your heart rate's a little bit high, which to be expected with that sort of thing. But generally speaking, you're healthy. You just got to gain the weight back. So I have been slowly gaining the weight back, and I am still working on it. Even though it's been a handful of weeks, you know, a solid month maybe. I had my birthday, which was wonderful. Like, it's a lot, and I'm glad I'm through it. Like, you know, I felt bad because anybody who's like, oh, what do you want for your birthday? I'm like, to be healthy. Can I just be healthy, please? I don't want to feel sick anymore. Like, at one point, after I'd come back to work, and my boss decided to chime in with a, you know, oh, I don't see you on the shop floor very much. Like, you're supposed to be on the shop floor more. You're an engineer and all this stuff. And I'm like, I had to set him aside and be like, dude, I couldn't walk for more than, like, I don't know, a couple blocks without feeling immensely tired and, like, breathing heavy. Then add on, like, all the safety gear and, like, having to wear a mask at work and, like, all these things. Like, and it was so hot outside, we don't have AC in the plant. So I'm like, I wasn't on the floor much because I couldn't be on the floor much. I did not want to pass out in the middle of the floor. Like, it's just, you can tell why I need to leave my job. If I was sick like that and I'm getting grief from my boss about not being on the floor enough. I'm like, you're lucky I'm here. Because I had very severe COVID and you wanted me back to work 5 days afterwards, which is, I don't want to get into it, but it is not good to put a human body through all of this, and I am looking forward to being back to full health again. I'm on my way to it. So yeah, that's the what's been going on with me and why I haven't been here. I did post on Instagram when I was in the hospital, just to kind of clue people in a little bit that I hadn't abandoned you guys altogether. It was just extenuating circumstances that kept me away. And now that I'm feeling a little bit better, now that my energy is back up, I'm hoping that I'll be able to be consistent and, you know, care for my plants especially. Like, I don't know if you can tell by just looking behind me, but I feel like things are not the healthiest they could be. I skipped a few waterings a handful of times just from lack of concentration and focus, because that's the other thing. Like, if you lose a ton of weight and all this stuff, like, I don't know if anyone else has this, but my concentration has been garbage lately. It is just, like, barely exists at this point. I can focus on something for like a short period of time, but I have no long-term concentration skills right now. And it's getting better, but barely. The last one is a varicosum. Got so much varicosum. I'm so excited. This one has a couple of dead leaves in it, probably because I forgot to water it. That is a theme with all of my plants, is they've all lost quite a few leaves just because I haven't watered them enough. But it doesn't look like they're falling off, it's just yellow. I will leave them on for now. They'll just be a little bit of an eyesore. But that's all the negative stuff. To be fair, that consumed a good amount of my thoughts for the last, you know, month and a half. I've been a little bit more negative than normal just because of what's been going on. But it's getting better. I did manage to go on a little weekend trip with the boyfriend. We went to a little town on West Michigan, which was very nice. Like, we just got a little hotel, just hung out, like, went for walks, ate some food, did some kayaking. Like, it was just nice. It was a good little fun getaway and, you know, a little break from all the garbage that have been going on with everything. And that was actually right before one of my car issues happened. I have a manual transmission, and the shifter cable went out, which meant that my shifter wouldn't go into gear. So I had to get it towed. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. I'm going to stop complaining. I need to stop complaining. I'm being too negative. So we hadn't been able to do like much vacationing at all this whole year pretty much. So that was really nice that we got to have a little break from the chaos of the world. And then I had my birthday, because of all the stuff I'd went through and because, you know, COVID, and I haven't had a chance to like have a big gathering in a long time. I wanted to have a big birthday party. So I invited a bunch of people over, we played games, I got some food. I'm not gonna be negative. I might talk about this in another video, but don't order from Chipotle catering. It was a unpleasant experience from start to finish, let's just say that. But everything went off without a hitch, and it was great. I very much enjoyed myself. I wanted it to be a 1920s theme, like everything was black and gold. And I had a flapper dress, and I wanted to dress up and everything. But that went really well. It was a roaring success, if I do say so myself. Everyone seemed like they had a good time. I don't know, the only other thing I can even think of during this time frame, besides job being bad, car constantly breaking, and constantly being sick, is the fact that I watched a lot of Big Brother. I know I've mentioned on this channel before, but I'm a huge Big Brother fan, and I have been consuming this season more than I've consumed really any season, I think, ever. There's a lot of stuff going on, lots of like underdog story and whatever, and like I'm really enjoying this season. So if you are also a Big Brother watcher, comment down below and let me know what you think of this season. Obviously there's been some ups and downs in this season, but right now it's feeling kind of on the up and up. So I've been enjoying watching the conflict and all that's going on between the leftovers, seeing how it's going to flush out and what's going to happen with this twist next week. Well, it's not next week because when I post this, it's going to be the same day as the episode, so I'll find out, hopefully. I hope you enjoyed all of my little potting up of all my seedlings. There's so many of them, and they're doing so well. I'm really excited to see them grow up and be nice and big. Hopefully you enjoyed catching up with me. Life has been a little garbage for the last month and a half. I am going to find a new job. I'm going to get my life more in order. I'm going to eat a ton, and all will be well. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more of me, you can subscribe to my channel. I post videos on Thursdays, but I have a ton of videos in the archives that you can watch as well. Write a comment down below. Let me know how your summer's going. Hopefully it's going better than mine. I look forward to hearing from all of you. I'm so happy to be back, and I will catch you next time. Bye!